There he is. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order on November 5th, 2025. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Bacon.
Here.
Mr. Baoki.
Present.
Mr. Costa.
Present.
Mr. Fosbrink. Mr. Lawrence.
Present.
Ms. Lewis.
Here.
President Martin.
Present.
We have quorum, ma'am.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any public comments, so we will be moving on. I would just like to make one remark tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have public comment, it looks like, right? Well, you're the only person, okay, so. Oh, I have to read this. Okay, I'm so sorry. At this time, only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Forest Hills will be permitted to address council on any issue, whether appearing on today's agenda or not. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them, who may speak for a maximum of 10 minutes. Speakers are asked to use the microphone at the speaker stand, clearly state your name and spell it, and state address for the record. If you have any documents to share with council members, you may present them to the borough manager now. The council president will determine how those materials will be distributed and viewed for the meeting. Speakers are reminded that council uses these comment periods as opportunities to gather information and not to respond directly to concerns raised. Information gathered will not be discussed at the meeting, but instead will be referred by the council president to the appropriate committee for review and discussion at the next committee meeting. If it is not a matter for deliberation by a committee that requires more immediate attention, it will be referred to the borough manager, who will respond by phone and/or email within 5 business days following this meeting.
My name is William Speedy Marshall, PHOEDEMARSHALL. And I live at 615 Woodside Road, in Forest Hills. I'm here tonight as a homeowner in Forest Hills for almost 10 years now, and about 6 months shy, to implore you as council members and as the borough manager to consider the dire straits of things right now and how much worse things will soon become as you all budget for 2026. We only have 2 months left in 2025, and SNAP benefits have been cut off, affecting many in this community who are already hurting so much right now. AI and data centers have led to soaring electric bills for everyone already, and those will only continue to increase. In addition, 184,000 tech jobs have been cut nationally, which has undoubtedly affected people in Pittsburgh who work on AI Avenue. And that doesn't even include the AI layoffs that are planned in other sectors that are going to affect people who work in places like Target and other places who live here in Forest Hills. Changes to the child tax credit this year won't hit people until next year, very early next year though, and will hit so many families, especially low-income families, because of the way it's structured, you have to earn a certain amount to even get it, and it's changed, and it's not changed for the better, in my opinion. Grants and other federal funding has dried up. It's in so many sectors. Personally, my primary source of income will end come January 1st because of Pitt's budget cuts. And I came here after a day of babysitting. I'm sorry for the state of checking on my dog and swinging by the place I'm house sitting so I can go home after this and get ready to teach tomorrow morning at Pitt. I've been trying to finish my PhD for years now, and while being this kind of gig worker, babysitting and pet sitting and house sitting, and while this degree might not even mean anything soon with the state of things, it would have been nice if it was my choice, that it's pretty much hopeless now. The end to subsidies beyond Obamacare or penny here again for healthcare plans that still cost so much, even with the subsidies that don't cover much, will hurt so many, including me. Starting the first of the year, I even signed up for healthcare through Pitt to try to be responsible, knowing this was coming. But with the other thing happening, I'm just out $600 for having overlooked anyway. As a council, people are hurting a lot worse than me. And will hurt a lot worse next year, and a lot worse than me. As the council and the manager are making budget and tax decisions, saving and spending decisions, I would ask you all to consider and include only the most absolutely necessary spending and projects for next year. A graduated tax would be wonderful for neighbors to help out other neighbors. If that's not possible, I would please ask you all to be smart and thoughtful as you can with where you can save and where you can cut back on spending this community's hard-earned money. Perhaps we can refrain from some of the work. Refrain from some subsidizing activities of more affluent people on the backs of artist-worthy folks, just for now, I'm not one for austerity ever. I just ask you to consider and anticipate the current hurt and the worsening pain that is coming. Things that might sound not that bad. Imagine all the factors that are not that bad times 20 and how much it'll cost people who can't afford it already. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, then moving on, other comment is over. I just wanted to say, with the new committee structure, there have been some just difficulties with us all understanding how finance works, so I really do appreciate Ms. Lewis and the rest of the finance committee for giving council leeway to have some questions later on tonight, if need be. Thank you, that's all I had. So I'd like to move on then to the committee reports. Mr. Lawrence, Ops and Policy, please.
Thank you, Madam President. All right, I recommend we accept the resignation of Nick Smarter from the Environmental Advisory Council and the Arts and Culture Advisory Council.
Second.
No,
Anything?
No, I was in another world.
Thanks, Andy.
We'll do that next.
Sorry.
We'll save it for you.
All right, we recommend to approve a resolution authorizing 5-year franchise agreement between the Borough and Verizon. If the manager wants to give any more in-depth information on that to the council, please go ahead.
this is something that happens every 5 years between municipalities and cable operators. It guarantees certain things to the borough as protections and to the consumers within the borough who utilize the cable TV services. It's usually a hard-fought battle just to maintain what we have. Cohen Law Group, who normally represents us, continues to represent us in a number of the municipalities and came to an agreement that actually expanded the definition of what fees are, which should help slow the loss of revenue that we see due to people cutting the cord, as it were. So we'll have to see exactly what happens when the new agreement does go into effect. But overall, I would consider it to be a win for us as opposed to just a neutral moving forward.
Anyone, anything else? Mr. Baker?
Just to clarify, it says purely cable TV and not a conclusion of their internet service.
Correct. The FCC has been very clear. It is only cable TV.
Okay. Right. We have a couple ordinances we'd like to make some changes to. Originally, we were gonna propose the council approving them, but in reviewing them, the solicitor's gone through some, made some changes. And I think some members of council like, and I agree, we need to push it back to ops and policy and just give us all some time to review these changes to these ordinances. We're in no hurry to get it done, and if we rush tonight and don't understand what we're going to end up making a mistake. Mr. Horrible, can you summarize these changes?
Yeah, the ordinance about feeding, that ordinance is basically expanding the current ban on feeding deer to include all wild animals. And then also, and this is on borough property, so it's in borough parks, borough property. Same for, I'm sorry, after the hunting, this is for the borough, why the feeding ban. And also for hunting, currently we just allow borough residents and I think employees. And this expands it to include folks from other municipalities that are approved by council by resolution. Similar to, I view it similar to the fee resolution or something that you might consider every year or as something changes and you need to update it during the course of the year. So that's the gist of that ordinance. And then the other ordinance does several things that focuses on speed limits that are reflecting the study that LSSE performed around the borough. So there are multiple streets there. There are some one-way streets that are established. That's in the first section, the speed limits in the second section. And then lastly, there are several service roads, alleys, and main ways that the manager sent along. I know they had some names that somebody thought or talked about, and so that's the last part of this is updating the service road number 2 to some other name. A lot of them are vegetative in nature. Right, I think they are. I think one was called Alphabet Way, which is a little, but that sort of thing. That's the second ordinance. We're in no hurry either, whatever you all are interested in. This looking like as a final product, we can make those changes and get it advertised for whichever meeting you care to consider.
Anyone? Mr. Derek Lawrence? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so we're taking a look at this again. We're not proposing that we move forward with this.
Not tonight, no, I think we ought to slow down.
Because there's still some questions and some potential changes that we.
Sure, and again, this is not urgent, you know, we're amending something that's been sitting around for a couple of years. And if it's okay, we'll just slow it down, go through some policies and present it to you when we next agenda meeting. Okay, then, okay, that's it.
Number 5.
Number 5, yeah, okay, approval of a resolution applying for $1 million to the local share account grant for the stormwater retention project. Anyone want to volunteer to give a summary about it? So,
So this is for an LSA grant for your pollution reduction plan. So we have 2 areas we're concentrating on. One is the park drive down the bottom of Ardmore. You have stormwater facilities that go to that point from public infrastructure. So there's been a tank proposed from the beginning down there, some type of stormwater feature. And then also this area
So, the parking lot next door, the streets going down toward Ardmore, on property that you want below the ball fields, if we could have a couple small ponds put in, where your infrastructure currently discharges and goes to, because it's property you own and we can do the, ponds in those areas. So this grant would apply for both of those. It's been a popular grant that people get. It would come next year. So, right now you're waiting on last year's to be awarded until there's a budget. We won't know if you bought any of those. So this is a different. Yes, question.
So that's the property below these ball fields here going downhill.
Yeah, going down the hill, your stormwater all drains into that from different points. And all ends up down in the culvert on Ardmore. Something that, this current permit cycle, as well as the next permit cycle, they want you to treat the water or hold it back where it gets created, where the outfalls are. So there's a little bit of repiping to do that. But we can help the system dramatically downstream by slowing down, upstream. So,
When, if we got this grant, would construction be?
And
Sorry, if we got this grant, would construction be in the 2027 construction season?
Yes.
Likely. So the other question I have is, if there were any other projects proposed on those ball fields of any kind, perhaps the installation of solar or something like that. Would the disruption of the use of those ball fields, would this project be smart to be done in conjunction with another project on the ball fields, is one question, and the second question is, regardless of that, would it disrupt the use of the ball fields for the 27 season building construction?
these are all, in the property below the ball fields. We want to disturb the ball fields.
So how would you get to it? How would the heavy equipment get to it to dig the ponds?
There's actually a couple of right of ways that go into those properties, streets that were never built.
Alright,
And your, one of the areas is your waste site on the back side of the amphitheater. There's area downstream there that the Westland House property drains to. So we would try to use areas that you own that has access.
okay, cool, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Bacon?
To expand on this a little bit more, so I believe we're all talking about Forest Woodlawn Park, although it is rarely labeled as such or properly described, because we're talking about the fairly steep slope that goes from here down to, I don't know. And, if any of you haven't walked that or want a wilderness guide to get me through the semi-official path that kind of follows the main drainage down that topography there. Assuming this is kind of what we'd be calling, trying to find some spots along that main drainage to build some ponds, right?
Yeah, the first area that I picked is if you, go out the alleyway and go down the hill. As you just get down the hill about 150 feet, there's an old right of way there. So right at the end of that right of way would be the first area, to create a pond, just for the drainage on this upper section of roadway. The second one will be back in the, where they don't. Possibly in the area where they don't, we would, try to create something in a flat area.
So I think one way we should look at this as a potential opportunity is that. Those features could eventually, when there's money to be had for doing this. Be incorporated into more of a sort of like scenic foresty park situation in that property. Because there already is a trail that goes essentially down the range there. And this might be something that could lay down for some nice, just little public spots with the gazebo or something like that in the future. So I think, trying to leverage any design in that and at least consider a future park option. So we might have some very nice setting for a little woodsy corner with our forest visuals.
That's a great idea.
Anyone? Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, the forest woodland park, the sign with it says forest woodland park, so.
okay.
Anyone else? Can we go proceed with this then?
Well, that's it does need to be in a motion with a second.
Okay.
Second, somebody?
We do the motions.
Can I do it now?
Jeff?
Second.
Very nice. You've been practicing, haven't you?
I was really hoping back.
Well, we've had a lot of comment, but no one else has any comment, then I guess we're good to go.
Okay.
Oh, we need to have a vote. Just a voice vote, please. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay, so, good. Last, very quickly, the citizen of the year, the committee to review the nominations met last week by Zoom. There were only 2 people nominated. It was pretty much very quick. Everyone agreed that one person, Tricia Harris, was the person we recommend. So I would ask the council to approve that, and that person be voted be in December if they're ready. Any questions?
No.
You think, yes,
Are we voting now so that we can present that in December?
that would be yes.
You don't have to vote, I would say, it's just, a head nod is fine, so unless there are objections, that we'll just move forward with that.
And
Does she know?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, not yet. That's what we're deciding. It's not. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Baker.
If this is being recorded and shown, then she knows.
And now she knows.
it is not being shown live. And with that, I will also take that as approval to send her a letter letting her know.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the meeting.
I believe that includes my report, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Then moving on, Ms. Lewis, Finance, please.
Okay, super. I am going to, I don't know how you wanna handle this. We have the budget discussion later. Do you want us to just sort of present where we are now and then get through the rest of the meeting and we can talk about it later? Is that how you do it?
I would like to just follow the agenda, and then if there's questions later, if we have questions that haven't been answered from your report, then later we'll do that, okay?
Okay, super. Seth, do you wanna hit the highlights of both the budget where it stands as of today and the highlights of the summary that you provided everybody by email?
Yep.
Yesterday?
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. In everyone's packet are the memos and information that I sent earlier this week. I'm going to first refer to the one that just says memorandum and is dated November 4th. While skipping the first page or so, on page 2, council requests and management responses. I took the requests that were made that were sent to me as far as ways to improve the budgetary standing, and I've replied in this section. Some of which were already either were not directly affecting the general fund in number 1. Number 2, we did remove the public works position in early October. That actually ended up reducing the budget by about 78,000. Public Works, despite what this says, I was actually able to reduce an additional 10,000, which I will discuss later. I did not make the immediate change to the committee budget, as it is only $1,800 difference. That is a change that can be easily made and doesn't have a significant impact in changing the numbers. And finally, the other suggestion was the dog park maintenance, which I do not believe would be an appropriate thing to do. Further, it does list things that under the current budget cannot do not appear to be feasible to happen. Towards the bottom, page 3, I do give some recommendations, and date them as far as when, if council were to consider them, when they might be effective. None of the budget numbers reflect these, as council has not discussed or voiced approval or rejection of these ideas. So right now, they are not included. Anything that would be included would be additional revenue. But those include increasing sponsored memberships, which could be done for 2026. The business privilege tax, which I've previously mentioned, while it would not be we don't have time to implement it for January. If council did want to consider it earlier into 2026, it could be potentially launched at a halfway point with a 50% fee. And then there are two other suggestions for implementation in 2027, all of which would require decisions and debate early in 2026 to happen. The rest of it are summaries of things that I recommend that council consider and have discussions as we look forward to creating a long-term stability and long-term budgets. That actually covers numbers 1 and 2 pretty much. Number 3 is the memo that's titled 2026 fee schedule. This has been available to council for and online for about a month or plus. Again, the significantly summarized is the change to the ball fields and the rental prices for those, which go up about 100%. Significant though is the ball field lights, which previously had no fee. This year had a $30 per night. We did the calculations and it actually costs us about $15 an hour to turn those lights on. So we're proposing that be the hourly fee. We are able to calculate the actual hours of use through the system that runs the lights. So we can get that down to the minute. Otherwise, within the fee schedule, and I apologize, the copies were made in black and white. But if you look online, they are in color, but you can see where there are strike throughs, where we made changes, and the new fees next to them. They are also highlighted by name on the first page. We've made some minor adjustments to the rental costs, specifically to the pool lodge and to the rental pool, the Westinghouse ball field and the lights, as I've noted, and other adjustments to the actual pool memberships and swim team memberships, tennis memberships. And that is a summary of that piece. I don't know if there are any questions at this time or if you want to hold them until the end of the discussion at the end.
Does anyone have any questions at this time?
Yeah, Mr. Abrams, we discussed in borough property at our last meeting that we'd like to see some increases in these fees for the ball fields and the soccer field, but it doesn't look like any of the figures have changed since our discussion.
That is correct. Based on the studies and looking at the pricing that other municipalities charge, and what we have charged, increasing at 100% appears to be what the market will bear. If council wishes to make line item changes, they are welcome to, but that is my submission to council with my recommendation.
So other boroughs are only charging $200 per season per team.
Based on the amenities and the work that is done and provided, yes, that falls in line.
What boroughs are they?
We've looked at Jefferson Hills, did use Munhall, as well as looking at I can't remember which ones Mr. Reamer looked at towards not the North Hills themselves, but towards West End, Bellevue, and that area.
Thank you.
The fact is that compared to all the other ones, our facilities are overall outdated. comparatively, and the fees are reflect that.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm with Joe, of course, we discussed this as he mentioned. And I don't think it's unreasonable to charge $100 a month to use the fields. I know that was high, considering all these years we've been charging practically nothing to use it. So my recommendation would be that they should be at a minimum $800 a season.
If council wishes to make that change, we can make that change, but I would then move to Mr. Baoki's original statement of a cost per month and further define that versus a full season. You may find that, and that's giving the option. I'm not sure if teams will necessarily want to have a full 4-month season, or even if they do now. Usually it's more like 3 months that give them the option to shorten it, lest we price ourselves out and end up with zero income.
Seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I have another, on page, wherever it's under, facility rentals. You have full line, et cetera, et cetera. Below that, you have all the information for the, security deposit, et cetera, et cetera. Now you've included all fields under that and the lighting. It appears that, that should be a separate item as opposed to making it look like it's part of the, either the pool line or the Westinghouse line. Because there was a point where, people supposedly could use the ball field at the lodge. I don't think that's still, feasible. So I would just suggest putting that as a separate line.
That's easily done.
Mr. Bacon?
Just a general question, we're talking, the only comments so far on very small items out of the budget. Are we generally comfortable with accepting the changes that we need to make here as far as revenue and overall, limits on spending and all of that? As we're talking so far, we've discussed about, I'm guessing less than 0.5% of the overall budget.
Oh, I have plenty for later. I just thought we were going through the fee schedule. It just seemed like we started here.
Okay.
Is that okay then?
And just to note, and as you look under each title, there is a section stating where the funding goes. The borough, within what's on the fee schedule, which is a lengthy fee schedule, very little of it actually goes to the borough, and honestly, not necessarily all of it is even regularly used on an annual basis, such as mechanical permits.
I'd like to raise, I was gonna bring this up later, but since we're doing the fee schedule and there's a listing for tenants. Mr. Lawrence had brought up, we should think about perhaps evaluating the tennis program. And when I looked, at the budget itself and then compared it to, Ms. Sierakowski's income statement, it appears that for 1 year, the tennis program netted us $4,300, but yet, right now, I think $21,000 and $139, if I'm not mistaken, in the budget is the cost. So I would ask that, given that we're nowhere near, not that I wanna make money, but we're getting such a small return on that and the huge cost to repair that, that perhaps for 1 year, let's try pausing the tennis program till we till we see where we're at. Okay, it's a small gain, but it's close to $20,000. I would just like to propose that. And it is listed in the fee schedule, so I brought that in here.
And also, avoids having to, do that repair the tennis courts.
Mr. Bacon?
I think if we're looking at the tennis program and, you know, potential investments in the facility and all that. I mean, that fee does strike me as pretty low compared to, things like the pool pass for a long season and all that. I think this might be an occasion to sort of see what the market will bear, as far as what people, the tennis is valuable enough to people that they are willing to commit to more for what, is a pretty heavily subsidized facility. I think this might be a good time to really involve the community, what people are up for. And with the expectation that it needs to be used, it needs to be committed to by people, preventable to investing in a substantial amount in the future.
Well, then, are you okay with, now that might take some time to get to. So are we going to, like, we have this on the fee schedule now. Would we want to just pause this for a year while we do some research? I mean, we do have free courts nearby, I believe, where people can go if they like to. And there was a suggestion made by somebody that if we decided, and it seemed that there isn't, we don't even know how many people use tennis. Someone suggested, perhaps, I mean, the area is already fenced in, it's near water. Would this be the perfect place for the raised bed gardens that Mayor Porco wants? I just wanted to throw that out there too, as a little suggestion. So, what do we think? Not about the raised beds, about the tennis program. Was there, Mr. Lawrence, your hand is up.
I would prefer to be a pause. I don't want to see spending money into doing repairs this kind of year. Perhaps when the program's gonna be dropped. I oppose it, pause.
Okay. Mr. Bacon?
I think we should utilize the recreation board as much as we can and impress upon them that we have serious questions about this. And I know there's some people on that that are very passionate about tennis, and they'll probably follow the response, but I think they may at least have a case worth listening to on this.
Mr. Bianchi?
In addition to the recreation board, the person that really needs to step up is, our recreation director. He's already proposed doing some survey. So, hand in hand with that survey, I think, that's the kind of outreach, that person should be doing. So we can get a better idea of how the facilities are being used, what other kind of amenities that they are, you know, kind of sports people want to participate in. So I think that's, you know, an additional involvement.
I would like to just say that I know in the past, requests have been made from the recreation group to aid Mr. Reamer, to help out, make suggestions, and it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. So I would like to point that out too. So are we then waiting to get, I'm sorry, Mr. Abrams?
I would like to throw out one other option just for council to consider. First, just to note that $15,000 is, you know, recommendation to perform some maintenance that does not need to happen. So the actual cost to run the courts is closer to the $57,000 to $6,000. If you wanted to not kill the whole program, you could decide not to do tennis lessons, which is brings in about $3,000, but the instructor costs about $4,000 to $5,000, and still leave the courts open. People who want to continue the membership, and that we not perform major maintenance. If they want to play on the cracks, they can. You can still always close it entirely. But that might be hasty without getting some feedback as to what people may want to do.
So do we want to then, hear from the Recreation Board, hear from Mr. Reamer, I'm sorry, Mr. Bianchi?
That's Louis had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis?
So, I had a sort of general comment, and that is that, you know, I think, like, I don't know if it was anybody else, but I definitely said before, like, in terms of decisions about our facilities, use, etc. I think it's prudent and smart for us to gather data, figure that out, and make decisions based on those use rates and all of that. And I think the ball fields is probably should be included in that. I'm relatively new. You know, my kids play ball, but not here. I don't know who uses the fields. I don't know what those price increases will do, and if it affects our residents or it's largely used by teams outside of here. So I don't really have a strong opinion about that, but I do have a strong opinion about making decisions sort of based on actual data and looking at the whole picture as opposed to, you know, not, I think it leads to just better, you know, better informed decisions and a way to speak to people who may have a different choice. A passionate tennis player, for example, to say, hey, look, this is what the data says, these are what the costs are. And I'm sorry you're not happy, but that's why, let me show you how we made this decision. I think that just helps in general, so that's all.
I would like to point out that I have asked repeatedly for information on how many people are in the soccer league. Are they from Forest Hills? Are they not? How many people are on the baseball league? How many teams? Who are the people? Are they from here? And I've received no answer other than there's no way for me to find this out. Did someone else have their hand up? Mr. Bianchi?
Yeah, just the other thing about tennis courts. Even if you wanted to continue that, I haven't seen the courts myself. But if I had to play on a cracked court, what's the liability? How safe is it to play? So I would say that those should be closed until we evaluate, how safe they are to be used.
Mr. DeCrosta?
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to make data informed decisions, no doubt about it. However, what Mr. Bioki just said is accurate. I mean, they're in disrepair. I don't think anybody wants to use the courts, and it feels like it needs a reboot. Regardless of how many people have complained, which I don't think is many, but it would be very nice to know how many memberships we had last year, whether or not they used it or not. I don't know if we want to delay our budget decisions over something like this, but maybe that's something we can think over later, but it just feels like it needs a reboot. Everyone's commented about how it's just disrepair.
Well, let's think this. We'll do a pause on it now, but in the meantime, we will contact the Recreation Board. Mr. Abrams or Mr. Reamer can get some information for us so we have data. How many people are using it? And what would effective make from your recommendation, Mr. Abrams? And let's just see that we have to really consider that liability too. I'm getting a little concerned now, so is everybody okay with that now? Okay. So was there, let me just take a look here at this. So I just wanted to make one comment. I know we had talked about this before. The renewal fee for chickens is $10 a year, and the only person that ever paid that was Marcus. And so we have no way to enforce this, it's the same thing with the beekeeping, is there anybody doing that? I mean, do we want to just not have that anymore, just out of, we have no way of going, if you want to leave it in there, Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, to enforce it, if they had to apply for it, they're on the books and then they.
I don't know that there's no way to enforce it, it's just what I heard is for $10, like, is it worth it?
Well, that too.
But we had an ordinance, because people wanted to teach it, so we have to. rescind
Okay,
that.
never mind, I don't.
And then the same thing for beekeeping, there are people that I know, actually, the person that passed away, but he was, a beekeeper. So there are people that are out there doing that.
Okay, I'm sorry I brought that up. Mr. Baker.
Probably so, but just go on too long, but I think. In general, everybody's quite favorable to it. I don't think any of us are suggesting eliminating beekeeping or.
Oh, no,
Just to clarify, because someone could take it that way.
oh,
which is
no, I
fine.
like bees, and
I-
honey and
Everybody knows
everything.
that. But, I imagine it probably would be, at some point, we did have a conflict between neighbors involving chickens, maybe 2 years ago or so, they got brought up before us. Having it just from a record standpoint, if it's something that we could just call our, code enforcement today, hey, by the way, if you see. Mr. Anderson's comment on how feasible this is, but if there are chicken coops, we want to just make sure that they are on the list. Because I think that will be useful to somebody at some point, it's a pretty small burden, just administratively.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And just to note, that is already the case. Honestly, as I drive around regularly, I haven't seen any chicken coops or any apiaries. So that's part of the issue, unless there's a complaint that drives somebody to look in somebody's backyard and enter somebody's property. Or you're walking with the windows open and happen to hear chickens clucking. It's not something and that's why it's not necessarily that it's unenforceable, it's just easily hidden.
Mr. Bianca.
Yeah, also, if we're somebody applies for a license or a permit. I guess it should be up for renewal, who's looking at the renewals,
Yeah, there you go.
okay? So we should be sending out renewal notices. So if we're not, we better start.
My recollection was that the renewals were priced in such a way as to encourage folks just to kick the money over quickly, but also offer us an opportunity to ensure that they are still compliant with the regulations around the coops and the beehives. So that was really more about enforcement and making sure they didn't build the Taj Mahal of chicken coops.
Thank you, Mr. Corbel. I wanted to just move on, if I could, to some of Mr. Abrams' recommendations on page 3. The first one for A, 2026, increase non-resident pool memberships. I think that's a good idea, but I wanted to ask if anyone has any thoughts, objections, or questions? Mr. Bailey?
We went to the full lot this summer, very rarely felt travel, and that was like 4th of July. I think it'd be an excellent way to bring in additional revenue and just goodwill with community.
I mean, it's really, there's a limit on it. 50 additional non, Ms. Lewis?
I'm not an expert in running a pool, but I think that the operation of a pool through the summer has fixed costs that are really not dependent on how many people are swimming in the pool. And so my understanding from the reports is that the pool is not at capacity
That's correct.
throughout the summer, and increasing capacity brings us additional revenue without increasing in from what I understand from recreation departments and borough managers, Clarendon in particular is one that comes to mind. Their map is a regional asset for the communities immediately around it and an amenity. And they have different pricing structures for the residents of the city of Clarendon than the other neighboring residents who also use it. And the the cost of running the filters and the lighting and all of that are really not dependent on how many people are swimming,
It's one,
nor are the lifeguards.
Yeah, the costs are fixed.
yeah,
We can
it's
raise revenue.
not necessarily totally fixed, because depending on how many people are in the pool, that have the appropriate number of lifeguards stationed, so if they have to call additional lifeguards, or they have to limit the number of people that can enter the pool, that's critical. So it's not necessarily fixed.
Do we know, I mean, again, that makes sense to me, but would this cause us to have to hire more staff?
It would not cause us to hire more staff.
Like
It would,
to-
it would,
Staff.
it would potentially increase the staffing costs. We create a budget based on what we believe we're gonna have. We would appropriate, if council were to move forward with this in time for this fee schedule, this budget year, we would appropriately increase the projected revenues as well as a limited number of lifeguards and reschedule based on that. Again, as was noted, based on how many people are there, as we've done in the past, we either call additional lifeguards in or send them home. While it is dependent on the number of people, it is that even that is not fixed. Oh, they're here, they must stay. That was a change that we did make. It used to just be you stay no matter what.
What's on, Mr. DeGraw?
I think it would be hard to quantify how much more hours we'd be, paying for 50 more families in the mix. I think it would just provide some more revenue in order for us to pay those people if they needed it. And some of the costs are fixed, but if there's not enough people at the pool, they shut down, we can save money, those kinds of things. I do notice over the years that membership has seemed to thin over some time, or at least even if the membership has the attendance has. So, maybe this will kind of refresh the program a little more too.
Well, it seems like we're okay to move forward with this. Is anyone in objection?
No.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, then, the other one for 2026 was, number 2 for the advertising and sponsorships. Okay, and you'll note that this sounds like a good idea to me. There's no fee, or we're hoping, it would be nice to make some money, but as, Mr. Abrams notes, there should be council or some committee, some policy guidelines for even soliciting soliciting business sponsorships. I'm trying to talk too fast, pardon me. So what did anybody think about this, Ms. Lewis?
I think it's a great idea, and what also just occurred to me is where my kids grew up, those local businesses sponsored the ball fields, which
Mhm.
supported the maintenance of the ball fields, etc. And so if we find that increasing the cost of the ball fields is harmful, to the sort of little league teams that exist, perhaps corporate sponsorships is a way to keep the costs for the ball fields more in line with what Seth was recommending, which, based on his research, seems to be compatible with other places, but then also defer some of the maintenance costs for those ball fields.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and the teams could solicit sponsorships as well.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Abrams?
I was just gonna say, as far as what Mr. Bioki said, that's what we do with the swim team. We allowed them to solicit, and all we did was increase our fees to the swimmers, knowing that the teams would then make the offset themselves.
Okay. Well, then let's plan on for the mid-2026 or 2027. Let's keep an eye on that for next year and talk about that. So we're good to go with these first two for 2026. Okay, let me just take a look here.
Which committee or group or do you
For
want to
the-
set, or do people want to, how would you like to set up the
advertising,
yeah, as far as developing the policy guidelines?
would that be ops? I'm sorry, Mr. Lawrence, I'm giving you
I
something.
was talking about the business groups.
The advertising guidelines.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're gonna move the business privilege tax to mid next year, yeah. So that will be number two, the advertising and sponsorships will move to ops.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that okay then?
Sure.
So,
Mhm.
good, okay. Okay, so I mean, I had some other questions, but they don't deal with this, so unless anyone else had any questions?
I'm sorry, we'll talk about it later.
Oh, okay. Okay, Ms. Lewis, looks like there's no more questions.
Okay, super. Someone.
Did you have something that we're gonna talk later?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
we were just touching base on these, okay. So does that end?
That completes my report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on then to borough property, Mr. Bacon.
Madam President. I mean, on the agenda, I know about the ordinances, however, we all agree on the committee that we need additional funding that we have to find. Through the legal aspect of formulating all of that. As far as the general report, we are still waiting on the completion of the steps projects. We are pushing on the contractors to get firm schedules addressed with getting this done. So that is still in progress. I do not have any other particular items for this month, unless anyone else on that committee does. Very possible.
Yeah, I just, I haven't been part of that discussion. I know that we've been talking about modifying this. The dates, the allowable dates for pruning oak and elm trees, is that a guideline for the borough? Or is that also meant to be for residents who might want to trim them on their own?
So that would be for the whole borough because of the oak wilt issue, so primarily focused on that. I believe it will leave some room to sort of expand that if we become aware of other tree diseases or other threats in the future. It'd be fairly easy to amend that in the.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear, but, are we saying that, you know, we're gonna create a schedule for ourselves to trim these trees at a certain time of year because of the oak wilt? However, residents may go ahead and trim them on their own outside of those times. So I think we need to, even though they're a borough tree.
Necessary.
So,
Yeah.
just hold on one second.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is, you know, people, I think the ordinance needs to address that, whether or not they should be allowed to, which I guess right now they're not. But also if they did touch them outside of those pruning dates, you know, does that then become our responsibility, or is that on the resident to cut the trees?
So the only thing, it's a two-part question. The first part is the November 1st date is just a modification. The current ordinance has an October 15th date. As the seasons have the warmer weather has lengthened,
Right.
so we're modifying it. So that doesn't change any of the second piece of your question, which is already addressed in the ordinance. It applies to any trees. Think of it like a public health. If it's a private oak tree and you trim it on your own property, but it causes oak wilt, which then spreads to all the neighboring trees, whether they be public or otherwise. And there are penalties for that should it happen. Now, we can't necessarily just penalize somebody for trimming the tree. But the ordinance does give these very clear guidance. If it needs to be done, should be done by an ordinance or by arborist needs to be dressed appropriately. So it gives detail if it does need to be pruned. If we do find oak wilt and it can be traced back to that tree, and same as any private resident damaging any public tree, we can find that person for the cost of the value of the tree and the replacement.
Okay, that answers. my
Yeah, and that's already on the books.
Joe, do you know also about the door hangers that the tree and shrub committee distributed theoretically and hopefully to every household in the borough?
No, and I haven't seen one on my door.
So, and I actually, this conversation, I still have some, cause I haven't given them back to David Wallace yet. But I will, the next time I come, I will bring a stack and put it on that table. But it is, the tree and shrub committee put together these door hangers that explain what oak wilt is. I'm shocked and disappointed that they're not in your neighborhood because your neighborhood's pretty dense with oak trees.
There.
Yes, but it explains what it is, all of that, so I'll bring some in.
Great,
put
thanks.
some there.
Yeah, cause I was just thinking about that, as Seth was talking about, like, how are we informing residents, so I wasn't aware of that.
There were, like, there were supposed to through your neighborhood was not my area, but I did around my house, and there were supposed to be doorknob hangers put on every house. Whether you had no tree or not, just so that you were aware.
Okay.
It was also put out, it's on the website, it was put out in Savvy Citizen, and there have been articles and pictures in the Tree City Times
Great.
during
Okay.
2025.
The door hangers wasn't particularly, it's just,
Yeah, it was a couple months ago, at the beginning of the season.
they were, in the past. Like, the tree, it was kind of awkwardly not official looking, in my opinion, I think a lot of, it was easily dismissible, just like looking at it as being a big forest of a borough on the side, official. Mr. Lloyd?
One, could you consider setting a deadline for your committee to address and clean up this ordinance? And then second, let's push this issue of information back to your committee again, sorry. Okay?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Borough mentioned that the review is pending, in the near future, so we should be able to get to it next month. Thank you. And that concludes Borough property.
Thank you, Mr. Bacon. Moving on then to planning and zoning, Mr. DeCrosta.
I just have one item, we are, would like to put on the next business meeting agenda. The removal of a member of the planning commission, she hasn't been in touch over the last year. We've tried 2 to 3 times, I believe, Mr. Bailey, to contact her.
We as the borough have tried at least 3 times, and I know members of the planning commission have also tried.
Yeah, with no response.
Correct.
So, the ordinance allows us to remove her and we can replace her, so I just asked if everyone's in agreement, we tried, and so we'll just put it on the agenda for a bit.
Sounds good.
If I can
That's
just
all I have.
add to that, as part of the process, I will be sending a letter out tomorrow morning. I'll send it USPS as well as email to that individual, letting them know that the vote will be happening, so they do have the right to potentially appeal and make their case.
Okay, great, thank you.
There's a question, Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Just curious, do you know what their term is up?
I believe she had 2 more years to go. Yeah.
Thank you.
I understood there was someone interested in filling that as well.
Oh, good, good. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. DeCrosta. Mr. Fosbrink isn't here for Public Works, Mr. Bacon.
I see the only item on the agenda is engineer report update, so may I have that, please, Mr. Brett?
Yes, so update on the road program, all the prep work is finished. Now they have 1 day of paving left for 5 streets, and that is scheduled right now for Friday. They contacted us a little bit ago and said, we think tomorrow's gonna be a bad day, come wind, and a little cleanup after that's done probably. So the weather's conducive on Friday when we finish. We'll do a walkthrough on that. I'm gonna mark out the speed humps, tomorrow, the set, and, we'll get a final quantity. And come back to them with, okay, here's what we do on the Cape. To complete the work that we talked about earlier, so everything's been okay so far with it, so. Then it's the, step project, we already did a schedule tomorrow. We did include, some photos and stuff of the progress. The work they completed is really nice. But they're extremely slow with these steps because, they have a circuit crew, concrete crew, that works on, that they apparently had other work too. So they disappeared for a little bit. We are leaning on them pretty heavily. They're one of the contractors that does a lot of this type of work. They've all turned out really nice, but they do get a little slow on the details. And so we are putting pressure on to get done. We are very pleased with the work, the dates, steps. We haven't seen them, they look really good. They're blending in really nice with the surroundings, things like that. And we want them to finish areas that they're completing and then go to the next area so we can get pieces that are finished. The handrail has to be done kind of all at once after the steps are built. They go in and measure it, field measure it, and then they build the handrail from the shop.
And then, I know we had some concern on the Woodside portion, there is gonna be a stretch of asphalt.
Yes.
Correct, and are we still needing attention that would be somehow squeezed in this year?
Yeah, everybody always has concerns about Thanksgiving. That used to be the case in Pittsburgh market. But you can get asphalt all the way through the year now because of the oil and gas market. They have to pay run year round. The plant here in Pittsburgh stays open the longest, because they need asphalt here locally. So, I believe you're gonna be okay. That's what we're asking. Can they do that piece? Now we get it finished. So we'll see what there's.
Mr. President?
I had a resident ask, I believe it's the portion from, is it Sharon down to the park that's been worked on right now? They asked, well, if we're doing all this work, why wasn't it maybe handicap accessible in certain parts? And my response was, I think it was the incline was too steep in order to apply to ADA. Is that a correct response?
Yeah, in the areas we paved, we try to get those as close or on ADA, but since it is steps. And you have in a lot of places, a 10-foot right away. You don't have any room with the amount of grade you have. And this is probably one of the least graded steps, but you still have sections that are 40, 50 steps. So it's if you try to make a switchback, it takes a tremendous amount of land and millions of dollars. So where a step replacement project, just that, we have eliminated sections though that we could actually put walkway, it makes it look nicer. And these have a bike run, if you notice, there's a little trough that's poured in. That's so when somebody comes down the section sidewalk and you can take their bike walking down instead of going boom, boom, boom down the steps.
That's awesome, yeah.
So it's they're turning out, like I said, they're very nice, but there is no speed to this type of work, so. But we will come back, and you also will notice that we key these into the hillside, so they have a footing with each section, and there's a lot of reinforcement that goes into them. That's because these steps have a tendency to move over time. That's what happens to the old ones, they get all deformed. This gives you longevity in this type of construction, so.
Nice.
And also the aluminum handle, correct?
I believe that's correct, but let me double check, because sometimes the aluminum doesn't make the budget. I think this needs to be,
I thought we would get to add on to that, but fair enough.
I'll confirm that tomorrow, no. So, we mostly do aluminum, I just can't remember the big budget.
All right, any further questions for public works? All right, that concludes it, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reagan. Okay, Mr. Biogi, public safety, please.
Thank you. For a general report, you should have seen, although I haven't seen them restricted, the minutes to the last public safety meeting. We had longer information in there. Also that was supposed to have been distributed was a letter that is proposed to go to all the residents on Summer Avenue. I don't believe that was distributed either.
No, that was not, and that was my oversight, and I apologize.
So, once you get that, I don't know that we need a motion to send those out, but I would like our council to be in agreement with that.
Mhm.
And that's all I have.
There's nothing for the engineer's report.
No.
Mr. Bacon, what was the final decision on Summer Avenue? Summer Avenue is we're taking the recommendations for the, fire chief, accepted the information that his, other, folks that were on the, truck made, that they can operate the truck safely down the road and actually deploy equipment. So he said as long as that holds, that he didn't see a need to change the parking pattern. We made a recommendation that people need to be parked. Within 12 inches of the curb, we got them 6 inches. Chief Williams said that he would make sure that that was enforced on Summer Avenue, so I don't know. Thank you. So,
I just have a question, this seems the most logical place to ask it, and that is whether or not, Chief, you know anything about the status of the pedestrian who was hit? How badly they were hurt?
The most recent situation I sent out Saturday. No, he wasn't like that bad. He said by the mirror of the vehicle.
Okay.
So exactly, he was transported to the hospital. Sure. He was an old gentleman, so. He didn't cross, so he crossed off and go to the door. Terrible situations.
Yep.
What's with that? Trying at on time, really well.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bielski. Then, is there any old business anyone would like to discuss? Is it a
I just
project?
wanted to mention that we're going to have another joint meeting of the planning commission, my committee, and Forest Hills, Community Alliance next week. On the 12th, and continue our discussions about the revitalization of the business district, so just wanted to put that on the.
Well, I have one for you. This is actually old business as well, because I believe, that people tried this before, that, on Tuesday, I heard from a resident that was interested in, the story about the people wanting to purchase the, area for the, down by the Atom Smasher.
Oh, yeah.
And that if a fund was established, that they would donate $1,000 to have that thing. I don't mean that thing, I mean the Atom Smasher moved and put somewhere like on borough property. Now that, I believe that was tried before and we couldn't
I
raise
think that
funding.
would cover one of the nuts to the.
I could see it up here somewhere.
Yeah, well, as you know,
If the
the
guts were
the
taken.
buyers are, open to, putting it up in that place and refurbishing it. Oh, by the way, I don't know if we met before then, but there was the Wall Street Journal article on the Atom Smasher site. I don't know if everybody saw it, but if you hadn't,
That's
do a
great.
search. Yeah, I thought it was good. Some, weird little people signed that.
I'm not sure, not that I know, and I don't really know anything about the Atom Smasher, but my fear would be, although extremely generous, that $1,000 would not be enough.
Oh, no.
Oh, there was a GoFundMe or
To like
something.
move it.
Yeah.
So maybe that generosity can be appreciated by doing something else around it or
Yeah.
making a little plaque.
No, totally, yeah, like we would gladly accept the donation in some aspect of it, sure.
That should give council some hope, though, that if the borough were to do an official fundraising campaign for this to to get it standing back up and to provide any assistance as the potential buyer has asked to ensure that it is stood back up and made into something of a small parklet, that there actually is interest from residents.
Great. That's all.
Okay. Is there any new business? Okay, the last thing for tonight is additional 2026 budget discussions. And I had some things, but I'll wait for anyone else that may have. Ms. Lewis?
I don't have any particular items, other than, what I said before, but I did want to acknowledge that I thought that the memo that Seth put together for us to sort of explain his thought process and his recommendations and sent out was very helpful. It also represented and represents, and I defer also to Ian to talk about this, but the tone and the nature of the discussions around the budget that have occurred in the finance committee, and the sort of what has stood over them is these sort of, what Ian was saying, these kind of higher level principles about how we approach the budget and revenues and expenses generally, and then working through the individual items. And so I appreciate that, and I also wanted to kind of call attention to, and we can definitely talk about them, but some of the recommendations at the end of that memo and some of Seth's observations about the inadequacy of the revenue with only at a 1 mil increase. That's all.
If I can just raise attention, the last thing in your packet, and it was not distributed in advance because I was literally working on it until about 4:30 this afternoon. As the treasurer has completed or is finalizing everything for the October financial report, I was able to take the 10-month actual and further refine projections that were originally done in June. So what there, and I realize it's a long, well, the text is rather short, but in there is a printout of the budget pages that you can see online. It is just a copy and paste. So if you want to see them on a computer screen, you can. But it goes through the 24 forecast is really the unaudited numbers, because we're waiting on the final audit. 25 is the budget, 25 forecast is 10 months, and then 26, 27, and 28 for revenues, and then expenses with some explanations as things. But I am happy, as I know that there will be, if there are not already, direct questions on line items to explain additional logic. Anything that you see that has a red arrow or a red triangle in it, if you go online, does have a comment attached to it. If you hover over that cell, you can see some of the answers and logic behind it.
Mr. DeCrosso?
First of all, thanks to the finance committee for doing all this work. I know it's a big undertaking and you guys do the lion's share, so I personally really appreciate it, to have some information to discover. The one thing that I was wondering, can I go into this, I haven't been able to figure it out. Go into this projected budget and change the mills to see what the differences would be?
So in the online form, you can.
Okay.
The one thing that I caution is that when you change it yourself, you change it for anyone who's in there or who goes in there. You don't change it
Just
back.
bring it back. Okay.
Yep, it
Make
is.
a copy.
Yep. If I don't know how well making a copy does because it's linked to other things, but in the upper left hand, I believe it's somewhere around columns KLM.
Okay.
further over,
there, okay.
it does list the proposed millage for 26, 27, 28. And you can modify any or all of
Okay,
those.
thanks. So from what I'm reading here in this other memo and then the one before is, because I'm seeing two different figures, you're recommending really a 1.25 to allow us some cushion, is that right? But
Yeah.
the one would allow us to balance and to do things that we wish to do in the proposed budget.
I would hesitate to say wish to do.
I mean,
Yeah,
everything that we've been.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's been decided on. Yes, again, the key pieces are, it does not include any new expenditures towards any matches necessary for grants, so we would stop applying for, and we have cut back, but not apply for any grants that need matches, at least in the immediate future. It also does not address the approximately 250,000 of capital requests that have come in between council members and the staff, except for the items that are noted, which are the police car and the vent track.
Okay.
Mr. Bacon?
I think I want to try and explain some of the like strategic reasoning and thoughts behind the finance committee. And
Before we do that, can we just talk about the changes that people would like to have first, with some concrete examples? Just
so
so,
it's for context on what we mean by the 1 mil increase versus 1.25. That's really the time.
okay. I thought we were already down to 1 mil on the budget.
And that's what's here, but let me just explain kind of how I think we see that wiggly room and we share what the options really. The 1 mil. And this is also like considering our public comments tonight and all that. The 1 mil is what is very strictly required to maintain our basic services for 2026. Where it kind of diverges, I think, is when we start talking about the future beyond that. So 1 mil counts us for next year, not going into reserves that are at the point where we really start taking risks by doing so. And it gets us through the year, but it does not start to talk about capital plans or investments for things that we probably should be starting to save up for. If we're going to properly continue our sort of rate of replacement for things like the public works fleet, several years out. Just having broader reserves in case of uncertain stuff. So it's kind of balancing how far ahead we want to look and plan things. And I think given the highly unstable nature of everything about our government beyond our Forest Hills area next year, kind of sitting steady and just holding back and waiting to see what happens, I think is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. However, if we take that approach, when we get to 27, 28, beyond that, it starts to become more and more uncertain, more things start to build up. And we kind of will eventually wind up in the same place where we are now. We deferred a lot of maintenance, a lot of things will eventually become more costly and services will have to change to reflect that. So I think it's kind of everyone's level of risk aversion as far as like true how much do we want in case of another storm like we had in April, where we really don't have a lot of extra money if we do the 1 mil. We don't have a lot of extra money if we do the 1.25, but there's still at least starting a trajectory where it starts to become more comfortable over time and given those long-term investments. So I think it really stands on, do we want to be as austere as we can be without significant changes for 2026, and then sort of reevaluate the year after that. And hopefully, get a better place just overall with continue or to try and get it done now or sort of pointing in a more secure direction. I think that's kind of that's how far ahead do we want to look and base our opinions, and are we comfortable sort of waiting and seeing for another year or trying to get ahead of things and balancing that.
Were you finished?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I was looking at everybody. Okay, so I wanted to start then to address that. When I look at the budget, what I see is now here's the first time I'm looking tonight, and there's 2024 and 2025. I see a lot of what would be considered padding. So when I check the financials of actually how much we've spent on certain items, so for instance, just to bring up an example. So unless this has changed, okay, I'm not gonna look now because, you know, we're getting late and everybody's tired. Okay, Public Works overtime had 55,000 listed for 2026 and I believe 2027. When I look at this year, okay, currently, based on Ms. Sarakowski's last finances, it was 32,000. So that looks like a little bit of padding is happening here, and this isn't the only example, okay? So this budget, what we see isn't strictly an austerity program. There's already built in monies that aren't spent on the items listed. So before we start to panic, let's think about that. So specifically, then what I wanted to ask, because I didn't see this, and I'm sorry if I missed that. So what's the percentage amount for us, for the reserves? Where are we with that? Typically, we've done 7%. Is it staying there? Is this
Yeah.
budget right now at 7% for the reserves?
Yeah, this budget right now does not touch the reserves at all, and I would just like to back up a second. As even prior to any conversations, when I did get the updated numbers, which actually reflect I believe 38,000, I'm projecting a $38,000 overtime this year, and it was then reduced for 2026 to 45,000. And a certain degree of padding, as it were, is a safeguard for things that do happen. We have some padding in this year's budget, and we ended up with $243,000 of extra unexpected money, and we're only going to have a $95,000 surplus out of that 250. So we absolutely used all of that padding due to unexpected costs.
Oh, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this approach. All I'm saying is, let's not panic ahead of time about what's gonna happen 2 and 3 years down the road when we're consistently already have a budget that has some safeguards built in. That was what I meant by padding, okay? Then I did want to bring up a few other things. So for instance, the library increase is still there. I'm not for that. We've gone several years without raising it from time to time. And if we're really looking at this bad of a future for us, I think that should be removed. Okay, I'm just waiting for anybody comment.
Is that what's listed as library donation?
Yes.
That's a difference of $2,500.
Yeah,
And, you
I
know,
just wanted to make sure I was looking at it right.
just to point out, and I realize that, you know, that they requested as a part of our per capita contribution. But they also have the use of that facility that, you know.
Mr. Abrams did note that. Yeah. Mr. Bacon?
I believe part of that library funding that was required to hit a threshold for unlocking significant additional money for.
I don't believe it is.
That was the statement made by the executive director during her pitch, that municipalities sort of need to hit a certain threshold based on the per capita in order to unlock state monies.
Well, so I'd like to see then what the rest of their budget is Because we never get to see how much money they've tried to fundraise, how many donations they get. So I'm not comfortable with this, Mr. Bacon.
I believe it was specifically municipal support that qualifies for that.
I'd have to see that that's actual.
I would like to have a personal finish speaking this for a moment.
I never know when you're done, I'm sorry, you do long pauses, we've had this conversation. I'm not interrupting him on purpose.
I will take it as a speaking for no problem, so.
There you go.
Give me in there, and, statute. That is one where, okay, if we're really talking about $2,500, that is less than 50 cents for each of our residents. Does our library get? It was like 150,000, something like that. With funding unlocked, like, we need to accept that their costs go up as well. And I don't see how we can argue that that's not a reasonable investment for a major community resource that's in this building. And I'm frankly surprised by how often I hear statements considering some of these like community amenities and literal parts of this building community, because this looks like oppositional. Others sort of competing enemy that we need to make sure isn't getting the best deal from us or something. I'm just very surprised at this hostility toward the small increase in the library is a major.
Wait, what did you just say? You spoke a little fast there, what was that? You were surprised about?
This apparent unwillingness to make a small increase in investment for our public library.
I thought you used the word hostile, did I hear that?
In
correctly?
opposition.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. DeCrosta?
I don't want to quibble over $2,500, to be quite frank. I don't know if it's that important, to hold back. However, I agree with President Martin in the sense that last year, after she presented, we basically got a very general overview of what's happening. And we don't see any kind of budget sheet to help us understand where she's getting. Does that, I mean, if she's not getting a certain amount from us, is she gonna get it from somewhere else to unlock those state funds, or is it dependent on us? That's all I want to know. I don't want to take away $2,500 to make sure that she gets the funding that she needs. But we're not being given the information that we need to make decisions to be data informed. And I thought this year when she came in with the presentation and all of the information about what you're talking about, we get a much more clearer view, and I didn't find myself understanding it any more than I did the year before.
I agree, we ask every year and we don't get that. What I'd like to point out on the, I believe when we're paying this building off, it includes paying for the library as well. But I don't know, is that correct, Mr. Lawrence?
We're paying a debt service on that, absolutely.
Please put that in.
Sorry, yes, we're paying a debt service for this. It is only $2,500. I do have a problem long-term with the way they come to us and just say, I need X amount of money. It's the same problem with WEMS.
Yes,
It's just they're not backing us into why they need $2,500. What costs went up? Was it labor? Was it the union contract? You bought an extra book? And I think pushing forward in the coming years, we're gonna have to say no. If you can't bring us this information, we're not giving you any money. And that's something I think, looking at this sheet of recommendations going forward. We have an obligation as council to take this document, not next summer, not next fall, but in the spring, each of us. Does this particular issue fall under my committee? What research do we need to do to say, okay, the next 3 years,
Yeah.
do I want the tennis courts? Do I want this? Do I want that? I mean, there's a lot of good things to think about here. But complaining about her lack of information a month before this budget is due frustrates all of us.
Yes.
So I think we have an obligation to look at tonight and say, we can't can't figure this stuff out. But next spring, it's incumbent on the chairs to pick this stuff that matters in the art committee and go after it.
Ms. Lewis,
Just that I don't disagree at all, and I wonder if. have we ever, as a council or a borough, communicated with these adjacent agencies and organizations, you know, to say, this is the information we would like to see from
We
you.
have.
Okay, and I
never
don't,
gotten it.
and what I wonder too is whether or not there could be an ad hoc committee to list out what the, you know, maybe it naturally falls, but I'm feeling like ops and policy is like overwhelmed at the moment, but maybe there is an ad hoc committee could work on this. And that committee could be responsible to go meet with these other entities, talk about this, talk about, you know, and maybe it's my committee, I mean, maybe it's fine.
I was gonna give it to you.
I want, I mean, honestly, I was gonna volunteer, but to sort of say. And I can do that, hey man, I'm new here. Help me understand what we do, and then it doesn't have to feel like an us and them. And we give these organizations a clear outline of what we wanna see from them when we get funding requests.
Well, then let me ask this, so will you take on then, your committee then developing,
Yep.
a request? We will need this fast, okay, so.
Wait, you
Your
want
committee,
this by,
finance committee,
by the end of this?
No,
no,
We need
but
this fast.
we need it fast, if you wanted to use it for this year.
No, I'm not, I don't.
Well,
think
then
we have
that's
time to
fine,
do that.
but until we get this information, I'm not fine with. This is what we need and we've asked every year and don't get it. I'm not fine with giving anyone anything unless we have information. Ms.
but I still agree with Ms. Lewis in the sense that. You know, people hate doing these things, first of all, it's the first thing
not
they're gonna
fun.
avoid, right? And so if we offer them guidelines, and I was right on that same wavelength, and in terms of, this is what we need to know, this is the format that would be very helpful for us, so we can review it and understand exactly what you need. And we've asked them for that, but have we given that to them? So as Mr.
We
Lawrence-
have,
we given them a format and exactly what we want?
we've asked in years past for specific information, we get the presentation, and then it's time to vote on the budget, that's all we.
Right, okay.
And maybe we can also include deadlines and say,
Yes, yes.
if you wanted it
Oh,
included in the budget, we need it by, sorry for interrupting, but we need it by July. Or September or August or whenever it is, and these are the documents we expect to see. Kind of like when the auditor calls, I want to see this, this, and this. I think that's very fair, and I think, you know, I'm happy to work on that. I can't do it in this budget season and get it done by October.
Okay, so then moving on, okay, so what is the RAD funding that when I first looked, there wasn't anything before and there wasn't anything after? It's only $2,000, but could you explain to us what that is?
Yes.
Mhm.
The law requires, and this happens all the time, that any increase we see in our RAD funds from the county, which is the 1% sales tax, any increase we see over the prior year, 25% of that has to be donated to to the intergovernmental, and it really highlights and specifies the COGS as being the recipient. So as we are expecting to see an increase over last year, 25% of that would have to go to the COG.
Yes, thank you for explaining that. Now, I did notice, I'm glad you put in there a charge for lighting the ball fields. Now, are they lit at night as well?
The ball fields are only lit when they are programmed to come on.
And when is that?
Historically, they are turned on manually by the teams when they're using the field on those nights only.
Okay, very good. And then I have, this is a question with, now that we're looking at everything. So we just passed the the procedure where now we're writing less checks, I forget what is that?
ACH.
Thank you very much. So, and I don't know any specifics on that, nor do I need to know them now, but it seems we've cut down on, we don't mail the Tree City Times, so why is postage going up when we're supposed to be working on mailing less? Mr. Abrams, you look like you have an answer.
Well, if anybody else has an answer, otherwise I do.
Okay,
First, and kind of most obvious, postage is going up, and at this point, it's going up on average twice a year. So even as we decrease the number of mailings, it would, at worst case, level the price. The postage itself calls for about 9,000. I'm sorry, I do have it on the online document as a note. But we do mail approximately 3,000 letters at the end of the year with the updated schedule and reminders. And then there's also the fire fee and the refuse fee. So that does come out to about 9,000 letters a year, plus the required ones that the police need to send via certified and other things. So in comparison to what it was, we are definitely has significantly decreased the amount of mailings we do. Unfortunately, the U.S. Postal Service has also significantly increased the prices of letters, even when we are able to use the bulk mail.
okay, and the last thing for right now is I see the deer management fee is still set high compared to what we had this year. Now, I realize that's if they get every deer, but that's actually a very fungible number that we might have monies left over. So what did we do with the monies from this year left over?
That money, along with the other pieces, went to fund other unplanned expenses.
Okay.
Which, I mean, we can go into.
That's okay, we don't have to do it now.
Into details as to what they were, but within the digital document, you can see percentages of actual versus budget, where revenues fell short and where expenses went higher.
Yeah. So did anyone else have anything? I don't want to seem like the only complainer here. Mr. Leo.
Oh, yeah, I have lots of stuff here. So first of all, for those of you who may have a short memory, last year we went back and forth with what the budget should be, what the increase should be on the village. And everyone was anxious to make it 1.5. And the reason for that was next year we won't have to raise it, we'll just do 1.5 and we'd be done. So for those of you who don't do good math, we raised it by 0.75. And now we're saying we're going to raise it by 1.5. That comes up to 2.25. So instead of last year saying we're going to be 5.5, we wouldn't have to do anything. That was the big argument. Now we're exceeding what that is. So what happened aside from the, increases that we had expected, that were projected? So what happened?
Well, for starters, the 0.75 was a council determined that amount. But with that versus actually it was 1.2 that was requested, but even at 1 mil additional income.
But the request was that everyone except for a few people wanted 1.5. And we dropped it, we agreed that we're only going to go to 0.75. So that 1.5 is supposed to cover us for 2026. So what happened?
It would have, and it most likely would have, except that without that additional 0.75, we also lost out on approximately $280,000 of income that would have occurred this year that would have been used to carry forward as new income that was not collected, which puts us back to. No, that would have been, had we gone with the 1.5 that was requested last year instead of 0.75. 2025 would have brought in an additional significant amount of money that would have been used to help carry and balance things over. There were other costs, including obviously the storm. Health insurance went up significantly more than anyone expected. We've managed to slice a little bit of that off. And then we have the other costs, some of which were not expected. We've got a significant increase in the OPEB costs, the benefits after retirement or after, when somebody leaves for retirement or disability. And again, we can go through and go line by line where the increases were significant that changed the calculus.
Okay, this is a major correction because I think you made a mistake when you were just doing the initial numbers. Because we increased by 0.75 last year. And the initial expectation was 1.5, but you said 1.5 beyond that, and you initially said 2.25. No, I know that's not what you meant, but that is what you initially meant. This one.
Because last year we decided that we were told we needed 1.5 to move forward, we wouldn't have to do anything this year. And so last year we decided, okay, let's lighten the burden and split it into 2 years. We're gonna do 0.75 and then another 0.75 this year. But what Angela was saying is that that wasn't the case, because we're asking for 1.25 now, plus the 1.75, or sorry, 0.75. So it wasn't going to be enough in the end anyway. Things happen, I get it, things increase. But what he's asking is if I'm correct on this. Yeah.
You're asking on the 0.25, but the original was initially was said, I don't believe, I think you said 2.25.
I did, because I thought the original ask was 1.5.
And the
The
original.
original budget talks that you had
Last year.
going out this year was 1.5.
That's not correct, that number is not.
Okay, even at 1.2, but even at 1.25, it's still 2.
Two compared to the 2024 level. But I just want to have everybody step back because we
It's
got a
still
whole
more.
bunch of very excitable talk about
No,
that.
it's still more.
It
I don't
is,
think it's
and I appreciate it. I appreciate the question, and I think we all understand that it's an important question, but we want to be clear, we're talking about a 0.25 mil difference, whereas the way it was initially stated, and initially began talking right
We're
here,
not talking about
it was super, this much more.
It's not. It's not a 0.25 difference. We're talking about, instead of 1.75, you can call it 1.25. 1.25 and 1.75. It still comes up to 2. As opposed to 1.5, had we done 0.75 and 0.75.
And as you said it there, I agree, that I think we're all.
Good, okay, we're good.
To further answer the question, what we have is, you can call it opportunity cost. It's incorrect math to assume that having if we'd gone with the larger amount in year one, as I said, we're looking at $280,000 of additional income that we would have had this year. That was because, again, for the record, the 0.75 was not my recommendation. It was council's decision. It was abided by. The math doesn't add up. That 0.75 plus 0.75 does not equal an original 1.5. It's not including the interest and the other monies that would have compounded. We would have finished this year. We're going to finish this year with a $95,000 surplus based on my most recent. And that, again, we have lucky money, so we would have had, 300, 400,000.
Same difference.
Except that this year's, I don't see how you can say same difference.
Take it easy.
Like, look over here so I can move something over here. Let me continue. Shell fund contract, we listed as a loss of revenue.
Mhm.
It's not a loss of revenue. We had to put personnel to handle those issues in shell fund. So now we've gained time where public works employees can now spend doing our work, not shelf ops work. So we didn't lose money, we gained employee time.
We did both, sir.
How?
We absolutely gained the time and potential productivity. We did not decrease our costs at all, though. We still have 8 people on the payroll and we still have the same equipment that we had. So therefore, our costs are the same, but the $97,000 of revenue that offset those costs is no longer present. We may have greater productivity, but we're not going to see lower costs.
We're paying the door on shelf, paying the door here. So how does that give us revenue?
It gives us time and additional productivity. It does not change the expense line, though. Am I correct? Does it change the expense line?
It doesn't change the expense line.
Does it decrease the revenue line?
But do I now have people that I can have work on projects here?
As I said, it increases productivity, absolutely.
And that's
Okay,
what we
take it
want
easy.
over to. You don't need the farm out. You already told me that they can't spend time on beautification
Mhm.
because you didn't have
Mhm.
the staff, now you have the staff. We go on. Deer culling, you have a max of 45,000. We don't need to have 45,000, we didn't use 45,000 last year. So unless they're going to be culling an amazing amount of deer, then we can actually limit how many that they call. So we can put a limit on that, so. What did we spend, 20-something thousand?
We spent 20, I believe it actually came out to about 24,000 over the course of the end of 24, where we made a down payment, and 25, and I believe we called about 25 deer. Originally council was, and I realize we're talking about keeping the budget in check, but originally council was considering up to 60,000 to really try and remove.
No, we
deer.
never did that. We always stuck to the lower one.
But
Never.
anyway, we're talking about control of costs, so
Mhm.
that's another area. The other thing is, talk about the pool, like, we're not using the deduct meter. You made a point to that, that cost us an extra $22,000. What are we doing to fix that?
There is nothing we can do unless we invest heavily in rerouting all of the lines, and I would actually defer to Mr. Brett if I could, and or Mr. Corbel, as far as the legality of draining a pool like that into the storm system versus into the sanitary system.
It has to go to the sanitary system. It's not permitted to go into the storm system unless you do a dechlorination process, which is very, a lot of times very expensive in order to do so. All the pools are connected to the sanitary sewer system, whether flushing, et cetera. So that's where they are today, especially now in the pump.
Okay, so using, outside of the chlorinated, using that water for any other purpose?
It would depend on what it is. If it's for public use in some manner, you have to be very careful. Watering potentially, it depends on how long it sits. It has to probably be tested, so you'd have to look at the regulation for what you're gonna use it for, because there's pretty strict guidelines for it. So.
Thanks. And then, on the, solar tax credit, we're talking about getting solar tax credit. You made some recommendations, and this is the other thing about some of these memos, and I appreciate the work that goes into doing this. But every time we get one of these, it's all different, so we gotta like, really kind of figure out what the roadmap is. But I would suggest taking that money and keeping that in reserve, put it in reserve, and using that in the event that we need to, and not divvy it up. And I realize it's a long-time thing. That's what I'm suggesting. And then finally, just from my perspective, I have some other things about, these have to do with the actually the fee schedule and some other things, but, from my perspective, I'm not interested in going any higher than 0.75 on the, increase and, suggesting that we balance the budget based on that. That's all I have.
Well, we've made some suggestions for increases in revenue and perhaps decreases in cost. Do we want to stop now and let Mr. Abrams give us a new budget for us to look at? I didn't see anybody's hand up. Mr. Bacon?
I would just stress that we have been trimming this a lot, and if we're going to talk about less, then we know we need to start chopping other things. And I'm not talking changes, I mean, full, removal of something like, for instance, draw all of your, something like that. Because we made, small movements in each direction, but the one middle, it is pretty obscure, it is pretty minimal as far as setting anything away. And I think if we're going to be serious about anything other than that, we need to be considerably more serious about changes to stuff.
Okay, you went like that, so it means you're done. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's continue to get an updated budget. And if need be, before our December meeting, what are your thoughts about a special meeting where we all come in and work this up? Let's wait and see what you come up with and tell us where we're at with the suggestions that were made tonight. Is that fair for everybody? And then, once we have that information, if you want to do the special meeting, we can. Yes, sir.
I think for sake of lead time and advertising things, maybe we should just get into a special meeting.
I'm fine with that too.
There's no rush or pressure.
Okay? And, you're not required to come, but I would really hope that everybody can. Is there a date anybody's looking at so we can give Mr. Abrams some guidelines?
How soon?
What's our leeway?
It's just the ad has to be in the paper 24 hours before the meeting, but there's not many opportunities to advertise, so the Sunday paper is probably the one you can do the quickest. Otherwise it won't show up until, I guess, if we get something to the Post Gazette this Friday, it'll be in next Friday's like East End section or something.
So just to give everyone, today's the 5th. If we could, the soonest that we would get anything in the paper would be the 13th, which would mean that we could hold a meeting anytime from the 14th onwards. 14th being a Friday, the 15th being Light Up the Hills, and Wednesday, the 19th being the actual business meeting. So we could have a meeting on the 14th, 17th, 18th, or obviously on the weekend, 20th, 21st, 24th, 25th, 26th, or we start to move into December. So there are plenty of options based on people's availability.
What do you think about the 7th? Oh,
My request is that it not be on a Monday, because I teach on
Okay.
Monday nights and I would like to be there.
how about the 14th?
For a strategic alternative before we get the release on this. We don't exactly have much plan for the next business meeting. We just, and I don't think we have anything developed and ready to vote on that quickly, and we're all talking about days past that business meeting.
You want to go to
Do we
December?
just, well, then, do we just, could we figure that we're just having another, slight extended sessions during the next business meeting instead of just walking out like 7:30?
Business meetings aren't for discussions like this.
Or the same day afterwards or something, just to use that same day.
I think what he's suggesting is you would have your official meeting, you would adjourn it,
And then we'd have.
and then you would have your
Oh.
special meeting.
I would prefer to do that because
I
I
prefer to.
know that my sense is with some of the discussion here this evening, there are a lot of strong feelings and there may be some distance between where some of us are. concerning some of these things, maybe yes, maybe no. I would rather have a discussion sooner with the potential that things are not fully resolved, then we're back to the drawing board and it gives us an opportunity.
So we
Just in
want,
case.
we want to do it after the, business meeting on the
Yeah.
19th, is that, we'll have enough time?
At which point, what I can do is make it a part of on the printed agenda. It is therefore, unless Mr. Crowell feels otherwise, not a special meeting. We can continue because it will be advertised all as on a regular meeting night, and it will be advertised adjournment of regular meeting, similar to what we do for a public hearing.
Yeah, you can.
And again,
then
make
say
sure that
that.
it's big and clear. And this way, if we still need to, at some point, advertise and do a special meeting in December, we still have that option available
Exactly.
without being committed to anything.
And we have our agenda setting meeting then too, so we'll have a couple of times and if we needed another. Okay, everybody good then? Is there anything more?
I have one request, and as I've got a bunch of notes on things, including approval for some additional revenue that will be added, as well as obviously some removals of things. If there's anything that was not clearly mentioned or that you want to make sure gets in there, please let me know. Because of the nature of all the changes in the drafts, I'm happy to print it out again. I will be adding a column indicating who made the request change, because at this point, there's not a whole lot of consensus, especially on the removals. And, this being council's decision to make, you all need to come to consensus on each one of these for it to stick.
All we need is 4, but it's all of us don't have to agree. So, okay, anything else? Okay, well then, I move to adjourn this meeting by acclamation. Are there any objections? Okay, meeting's adjourned.